people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here. Glad to have you along as well. Today is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. And what we're doing today is focusing on art and culture. So much rich activity happening in this community and communities around the world. I'm pleased to have today's program focus on that. Let me first begin by welcoming my co-host and classmate from kindergarten, Brenda Lyle-Gray, who joins me every day from New Mexico. Brenda, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you again.
In many years since I have seen Robert Powell, so what a thrill.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it really was when he popped up.
Bring Robert in. Robert goes back. Robert obviously knew me before I knew him. He's my older cousin. Robert Powell, how you doing, man? Come on in.
I'm doing well.
It's been so many years.
Hey, what a pleasant surprise. Wow. Yeah. How you doing?
Every day with him, it's really, I'm thrilled. After 70 years, I'm thrilled.
Hey.
I get spanked from time to time with the words and the writing, but I'm learning.
Yeah. Well, you're still the young girl in our group. I'm 77, you know.
Well, I'm 75 and grateful.
7 years. Yeah.
You know what's cool? What's cool, everybody, is that Brenda and I were in kindergarten together. Robert, my older cousin, obviously knew me before I knew myself. And so it's really a pleasure, a treasure to have the chance to spend time with Brenda every day doing the conversation, talking to people both here in Twin Cities and around the world about all kinds of issues. Our mission, our vision is connectivity. How do we create a space where we talk to each other in a way that's intimate on the one hand, but global at the same time? How do we speak earnestly, speak frankly, with intensity, and with a kind of a gravitas that resonates with our times? That's what we do every week, and it's wonderful for me to have relationships that go back decades and decades, and that's what I have with my dear cousin and elder, Robert Powell. I grew up in the Powell house. My family lived on the third floor of this huge brownstone that we call it the Powell house on 28th in Brooklyn. The Powells lived on the main floor with my cousins who were twins under Robert, living in the basement. Robert probably too, I'm not sure. And then our grandparents on the second floor, and then my mom and dad and me and my older sister on the third floor. But it was a rich and wonderful experience in the neighborhood. It was a phenomenal one. And I just remember all of us walking from the 28th Street and Brooklyn house to school together down at Booker T. Washington, I think public school, I think it was. Right. And we start off with 2 or 3 or 4 of us, and in a block, 2 or 3 more, another block, 2 or 3 more. By the time we got to school, 10, 12 blocks away, there was a knot of us, a bunch of us going together. That was companionship. And it's an experience that I think means a lot to me now in reflection, but meant a lot to us all. It taught us how to be together. And being together really is what I'm focused on now. How do we come back together and walk in a path towards the rediscovery of what community means, rediscovery of our genius, of our brilliance, and of our love for life and for each other. Well, Robert, good to see you, man. You got an award. I wanted to reach out to you because I saw the Facebook post of an award you got for your work, your life work, I'm presuming, but your work at Portfolio. Take a minute and tell people about the award and about Portfolio.
Thank you, Al. The award was presented to me from the collective groups, fraternity and sorority group, the AKAs, and the Epsilon Lambda Charitable Foundation of Alpha Phi Alpha. And they recognize African-American males in the community who are moving forward, being constructive with their lives and their mission. And so I was nominated and was very honored to receive the award. Yeah.
Well, talk about your career as an artist and as a producer in the art world, the mission, the vision, what you've done with Portfolio.
Well, we're still doing it, but I founded Portfolio Gallery and Educational Center 1989. And our mission is to educate, enrich lives, and foster a greater awareness of art created by the African American visual artists. We accomplish our mission through exhibits, classroom instruction, commissions, and earned income for our not-for-profit 501c3 arts organization. We do lots of things. We have an upcoming exhibit that I see Al pulled up. That's an exhibit we open August 25th at Culver Stockton College in Canton, Missouri here. And we have 6 artists who are participating, and it opens August 25th through September 23rd with a closing reception September 22nd. We're also partnered with the National Blues Museum here in St. Louis to create a community-based art exhibit. All comers, students, amateurs, whoever wants to enter it, who live in a 25-mile radius of St. Louis and the Blues Museum. We're hoping that's going to be a great show. We often think about art shows, I'm sure locally where you are. Why can't the local artists show at the big art museum? So we're trying to get closer and closer to our goal of conducting an exhibit at the art museum, the major exhibit, that is funded by tax funds. So we're stepping up our game and very excited to be part of it. I could go on, but I don't want to take all of this.
We'll come back. We'll come back.
Portfolio Gallery is STL. Portfolio Gallery STL.org is our website. You can reach us there.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. You just heard my cousin, one of my mentors and elders and leaders, one of the people I love, my cousin, Robert Powell. He's the leader, the visionary behind Portfolio Gallery and Education Center in St. Louis. Robert, hang on, because before we get done, hang out with me for the whole hour if you can. I want to ask you.
I will. I'll be here the whole hour.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you and the other artists and activists to come on to reflect on the world we came into when we were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And let's look at what has happened. What have we added to, and what has challenged us? And where do we see our role, our obligation, our opportunity to co-author futures in which we win? Well, with that, let me shift to one of the people you were kind of talking about in terms of art institutions in the community. And there are 2 here, but I'm gonna go first to Signe Harriday. Signe, she's the producing director at the Pillsbury House Theatre. Pillsbury House Theatre is a major institution here in Twin Cities, producing a lot of great work, a lot of great artists. Signe, come on here if you would. How you doing? Good to see you. Give people Pillsbury Theater 101. What's the story?
Well, first of all, just thank you so much, Al, for making space for this important conversation and for inviting me to be in this circle today. I'm really honored to be with you and excited about everybody's work, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that too and the connections. But here at Pillsbury House and Theatre, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary of being a professional theater here in South Minneapolis, right at the intersection of 35th and Chicago. And we've been creating theater that really speaks to the times, that speaks to the voices of members of our community and beyond. We've been a launch pad for the careers of many, many artists, both local and nationally. And you'll see on the screen for folks, we just had a block party to celebrate our 30th anniversary. And we're a part of a larger community of social service agencies called Pillsbury United Communities. And with Pillsbury United Communities, we're also in deep relationship with KRSM Radio, which is an incredible radio station right here again on the south side of Minneapolis. We call it lovingly the voice of South Minneapolis. And they're celebrating their 5th anniversary. So we just did that. But really the 101 on Pillsbury House and Theatre is we are an arts integrated community center that uses creativity to help people imagine the futures that they see themselves as being deeply loved and respected, and work to build that.
Question, what is the Audacious Artist Series? Who are some of the artists in it? Talk about it.
Yeah, well, I hope that Mr. Powell will engage with me in this conversation. Because
I certainly will.
Because Mr. Powell, do you know Allison Sarr and Betty Sarr?
I know who they are, yes.
Well, you may be surprised, and your listeners too, to know that Allison Sarr has created a life-size bronze statue of the infamous and such an important artist, Lorraine Hansberry. And this bronze life-size statue with 5 chairs surrounding Lorraine represent the different parts of her life. And Allison Sarr is, and I'd be curious of your opinion, Mr. Powell, but we see her as one of the most important voices of Black sculpture in our lifetime. Would you agree?
I would agree to it. I would agree. She tells wonderful stories with her art.
And so I'm a little bit giddy to even talk about it because this sculpture is on exhibit in our parking lot and will be here for a month. And, you know, the way that Allison creates work is really the way that you opened up the show, Al, is to create spaces where people can be in deep conversation with one another, where they can literally, with our statue, sit in circle, which is what we as Black folks have always done, sat in circle to really be in community. So the 5 chairs that surround Lorraine in this statue represent her life as a journalist, as a playwright, as really a champion for civil rights, for Black folks, for women, for members of the LGBT community. And even in the short time that Lorraine Hansberry was with us, we are still feeling the incredible impact of the work and the paths that she paved for so many other artists. And so we here at Pillsbury House are just holding the space so that people can come and commune with her, be in conversation with her. And for so many of us, the visual arts, we've actually, though it's been a part of our community forever, institutions have separated us from access to our own stories and our own art. And this installation and Allison's work is about a kind of homecoming where we get to touch and feel and be in relationship. And so as a theater who tries to create community, we wanted to create a series of additional pieces of artwork that invite the community in. And so the Audacious Artist Series, we commissioned more than 20 different artists to help to show people how you might engage with this piece of art. So Miss Tracy Williams Dillard, the CEO and publisher of the Spokesman Recorder, the longest Black newspaper here in the Twin Cities, she wrote a piece for the Audacious Artist Series. Sharon Bridgeforth, One of the most important Black female playwrights in the country wrote a piece. We had a local playwright write a piece, Venetia Coleman. We had a group of young artists create visual artworks, an original song inspired by the life and legacy of Lorraine Hansberry. And then we even created a short film that folks can see on our website that invite you in to the statue is entitled To Sit Awhile, that invite you in to sit a while and think with Lorraine Hansberry. So I know we have lots of guests and lots to talk about, but the Audacious Artist Series is this amalgamation of incredible people pulling folks in.
And how much time is it before it moves on?
Oh, Mr. Powell, thank you for asking. It is here in our parking lot until September 15th. And she's making a tour all over the country. She was originally introduced in Times Square and toured around to the Schomburg Museum, was recently...
Do you know if she's coming to St. Louis or Missouri?
Well, you know
where could I find out? Or when does it hit, you know?
Yeah, well, I will pull up the schedule. I don't have the exact times and dates, but I do know the cities that she's going to next, and I'll pull up those cities. And if she's not coming to St. Louis, we should figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, it would be wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah.
That's how we collaborate. I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation. We're talking about art and culture. And Signe, before I bring our other guest in, let me just ask you to flow for a second, build on the concept of why public art is so important to our people, to our community. You and Robert maybe just respond to the value, the meaning, why it's critical that we have and support public art in our community.
That's such a great question. Mr. Powell, do you want to start?
I think it's important because it gives one a chance to tell your own story. And I think we have a number of artists, both sculptors and painters, who do murals, who tell our story. Our story is a wonderful one that makes you shake your head sometime and say, isn't it amazing we've come this far? Even though we know but when you think of where we started, you know, how far we as a people. So public art gives us a chance to tell a story, to walk past, if I might, I hate to, but it came in my mind. Across from our childhood home is a sculpture of Bernard Powell, my brother, who was assassinated in Kansas City, Missouri. But along with that, public art, that opportunity to tell the story of who was Bernard Powell, be motivated by it, knowing that someone just like you did these things for his people, for his community, for his family. So public art gives us that chance, to me, to tell that kind of story.
Signe?
Yeah, you know, I'm moved to tears right now. I think you said it really eloquently, Mr. Powell. I think that public art becomes this opportunity to also reflect our humanity and affirm our existence and give us the bold permission to dream different futures. And I also hope, and the work of this particular statue by Allison Sarr, because it is touring around, public art holds the vibration of multiple stories. That when you engage with public art, it's not just a solo experience, it's a collective experience, which is what we aim to do in the theater, create collective experiences where we can come together. So when you put your hand on this bronze statue, you can feel the energy of the other people who have touched it. And I think that is actually how we are going to heal. I actually believe that it is collective energy around us coming together that will create better futures for my children and for my grandchildren. And I also think that public art creates what you opened the show with, Al, a space for people to gather.
Mm-hmm.
It has a natural invitation for, as you're walking to school, that you get to be with other people in the space of public art, that you can also experience it maybe with somebody who you didn't know. And that you can begin to create a kind of communion with other people. And that's what public art and access to it is imperative. Because for so long, our stories, our art has been extracted from our communities, has been the way that systems of oppression have capitalized on our pain. And so I think it's also really important that public art remain for us, by us, and in our communities, and not for the gawking or the stalking of an outside. This is a very intimate experience with one another that we get to have publicly. And that's, I think, profound.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane here on KFAI and across our social media platforms. If you're joining us through YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, we want you to connect with us. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're watching or checking us out from. And for our radio audiences, as Signe was talking, she's got her ID on her image on our Zoom type program. And Signe, bring Signe's picture back up, because I was going to ask you to explain something, Signe. Yeah, Bosch, bring Signe back into the picture so I can see her name. Let's see. There we go. So her title says Signe, then she/her. Then it says PH+T. Then it says Dakota Land. Break that down for me. I'm glad you have that. I need to know what you're talking about. And I'm sure other people. So imagine that people who are listening have to see this in their mind's eye, and I'm asking you to describe it.
Sure. Yeah. So as I named myself in this virtual space, I included my first name. Normally I include my full name, but that would have been long, Signe V. Harriday. And I include the pronouns by which I go so that if folks refer to me, they know. The PH+T stands for our community, Pillsbury House and Theatre, which is actually, if you're tuning in, you can learn more about us, the exhibit and our work at www.pillsburyhouse and, the word spelled out, theater with an R-E at the end.org. And then I have behind that, I have Dakota Land, which for me is about placemaking and the recognition that we here in South Minneapolis are on stolen land that was forcibly taken from Indigenous people. And that in a way, I am a part of the legacy of that colonialism in this land. And so to be in solidarity with Indigenous people, it's important for me to recognize that I am on stolen land. As a descendant of people whose labor was stolen, I believe that we have a shared appreciation for our collective healing. And so in putting Dakota Land on my nameplate, it's a way for people to know where I am in the world, and also to know that I'm a part of an anti-colonial project. That is to say, I am tired of colonialism. I am tired of systemic oppression. I am tired, as you know, Fannie Lou Hamer, tired of being tired. But I also know that there is work to be done. And so I am interested in doing that from a perspective of solidarity and a recognition of the harm that has happened. And I do believe that art has perhaps the most important role in helping to pave a way to redress that harm through a healing journey. And that's what Mr. Powell was talking about too with the narrative work. Like our stories, we have to have our stories.
Did you know Stacy Parshall, who used to be on staff there at Pillsbury?
Yes, an incredible human being.
So Stacy and I are cousins. You know that, right?
Oh, I didn't know you were. Who are you not cousins with? That's actually
Robert, you don't know Stacy, but Stacy and I are cousins through my Uncle Leslie, right?
Yeah.
Who was my dad's brother, and they lived in Worthington, Minnesota. Stacy is an enrolled member of the Ho Chunk Nation, and Stacy and Steve and their family, great family. But Stacy, I brought up because she worked there, and she is an exceptional and gifted playwright and filmmaker. And she's been on this show in the past talking about her creativity, her work, and that's why I appreciate it so much that you've listed in your nameplate on the screen Dakota Land, acknowledging that there's still work to be done. There's some unfinished business that we have to all be aware of and be about. Let me shift and bring and widen the conversation with two additional guests. And they are Kevin West, who's the Capri Theater General Manager and Director of the Capri After School Theater, and also James Scott, who's Director of the Capri. The Capri Theater is another legacy institution in North Minneapolis. My daughter and I were sitting there talking about how we both saw Prince's first kind of major public performance at the Capri on West Broadway when he released his first album. But Capri has been an institution in North Minneapolis forever and is now experiencing new life, regeneration through the work of the people at the Capri and the Plymouth the Plymouth Christian Youth Center is their sponsoring organization. Brothers, good to see you both. Welcome to the program. Let me have you, James, first of all, give Capri 101 background, and then Kevin jump in.
Well, and thank you for having us here with this esteemed group of people. Mr. Powell, it's a pleasure to meet you. I grew up in Southern Illinois, so just a little west of you there. So I'm very familiar with St. Louis. The Capri was built in 1927 as the Logan Theater. So before we got on the call here, there was sort of a competition for who was the oldest in the room. We'll be 100 in 5 years. We're owned and operated by PCYC, which is a social service agency here in North Minneapolis that'll be 70 years old in 2 years. So we have a long legacy in North Minneapolis. Built as the Logan, became the Paradise in 32, became the Capri in 66. As Al mentioned, and Kevin, I'll toss this over to you because you tell this better than I do, the story of Prince's first concert here in 79.
Well, yeah, as we know, Prince was discovered here at the Capri doing a concert January 5th, 1979. He was 19 years old. This is the concert where the Warner Brothers reps didn't think he was ready to be a major superstar. So that just shows you just the power of art, and when you're a dedicated artist, what you can do regardless of what people may think. So it's quite the venue. We look at it as a destination spot for the 7-county metro area, although we are here in North Minneapolis. But this is a space that was built with the community in mind. As James said, we're owned by the PCYC, the Plymouth Christian Youth Center. Our mission is to enrich the lives of North Minneapolis youth in partnership with adults and communities. And we have a staff of 5 who work really hard to make sure that the Capri offers that to the community. We're a rental venue, so we like to look at ourselves as a space where we help people realize their dreams, because everybody wants to put on a show, but they don't realize what it takes to put on a show. James, you want to talk about the renovation? James was the project manager on this 20,000 square foot renovation. So James, I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah, so in 2005, we started fundraising to renovate this historic last of 13 community theaters that were in North Minneapolis at one point. We're the last one operating. I used to say the last one standing, but the theater right opposite George Sherman's Homewood Studios was the Homewood Theater. It's still standing. It's just not operating. It doesn't have an occupant at the moment. 2009 happened, the bottom fell out of the market. So we took some of the money we had raised and did a small renovation and started again in 15 to create the beautiful renovation you see in front of you now. Closed in May of 2019 with a week-long celebration of community artists and film, with the hopes of being open in October of 2020. Of course, COVID. So we did get open last fall, October of 2021, again with a similar celebration of community. I wrote this down, Al, because you said this at the very beginning. This walk in a path towards what community means. That's really the space we're trying to create here. We're not a theater in the way that Pillsbury House is. We don't have a resident company. We have a couple of companies that are with us frequently. Peter Moore is doing 8 Misbehaving starting September 16th, and that'll run through October 8th. That'll be Peter's 3rd production with us here. We have partnerships with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. We have partnerships with the Minneapolis St. Paul Film Society. But as Kevin mentioned, primarily what we're doing is creating a space for local artists. One of the things that's struck me lately is the power of art being created by youth. We went through a stretch of 4 to 5 weeks where we had a senior in high school premiering it was almost a 30-minute documentary on the public school to prison pipeline. We had a young man out of Duluth who put together, that was almost a 2.5-hour concert, wasn't it, Kevin?
Yeah.
Of local artists, powerful spoken word song around empowering these youth and the voice that they have in the world that we live in at the moment. We had a young man who put together a burlesque show around the beauty of the Black body. So these were all 25 and under youth. The future of art is in some incredible hands. And that's the space we're trying to create here. They were all local. The gentleman that put the burlesque show lives 4 blocks from here. So it's that path towards what community means. As we look towards writing a book about our 100th anniversary, that's what we're wanting to dig into. What did this theater mean to the community? The history of the building is easy. Anybody can tell that story. But as folks walk through this door and we hear them talk about, I saw my first film here, I met my wife here, there used to be Bruce Lee double features here, and we'd kung fu fight all the way home after the show. It was the only place my mom would let us walk to. What did that mean to this community? And how do we continue on that legacy with this beautiful new space we have?
And it also gives us an opportunity to re-engage with the elders, because Natando Zulu and the Black Storytellers Alliance is coming back. Daniel and a lot of the people who watched this space evolve into what it is, but went through the hard times with it, are coming back. And when they walk in the door, they're just so amazed and so ecstatic of what they feel and what they see.
Dennis Spears is one of your regulars there.
Yeah, he's one of our producers as well. He produces our Legends Jazz series. So we also are a contract alternative through Minneapolis Public Schools. So not only do we help the community realize their dreams, we also make sure that we have a safe space for our babies. We have an Ida School Time for elementary school kids. We have a middle school summer camp Capri. These 7th to 8th graders just did a production of The Wiz Jr. that was sold out both nights. I run a high school theater class here, and my motto in my class is plant your feet, claim your space, and speak firmly to the world, because we give these young people an opportunity to voice who they are, to bring all of who they are into a space. And listening to Signe and I know each other from the theater community, and just to know that Peel House, where I've worked as well, And the Capri are two anchor institutions in two communities in the Twin Cities. We are very fortunate. And I don't want to take the soapbox, but I need to acknowledge Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell, Bernard Powell, I grew up seeing that statue in Spring Valley Park. I remember the motto, ghetto or gold mine. I remember SAC 20. I remember the Social Action Committee of 20 because I grew up on 22nd in Woodland. So I know
I did not know that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. My older siblings probably know you, but I know my sister knew Bernard. So this is quite this is very inspiring to me because that ghetto or gold mine is something that I carry even within this community. And I've been in Minnesota for 35 years.
Yeah, it works anywhere. It's a mindset. It's a mindset. That's one has to share that.
That's what we do here at the Capri. You can have a choice. You can have a ghetto mindset or you can have a gold mine mindset. And lots of times when they walk through these doors, they may have a ghetto mindset. But I have seen lives changed. Students staying here for 3 or 4 years. You know, they come back and be like, oh man, I went to college. You know, I got 4 kids now. I mean, sometimes we're standing outside under the marquee, a grown man will walk by and be like, hey, you were my theater teacher. Yeah. And I'll kind of go, probably. Young man got me the other day, and he's 32 years old. He was 17 when I had him. So it's like, okay, this is working. So art is very powerful. So
very powerful.
Thank you all for the work you do. I'm sure you know Ron Himes.
Certainly. Certainly.
I know Ron as well. So keep up the great work you're doing down there.
Well, thank you. And it's all because of another one of Bernard's sayings, let each one teach one. So I've had help that, you know, complete strangers, not only friends, but people you meet first time and they just help. And I say people who want to help, you know, and if I could get out of all the, you know, I'll try. I've come to know that when people say I'll try, they're not helping because you can't measure try. I tried, you know, so I'm looking for the doers, you know, those who want to help, who see the mission, who understand the vision. That's all that's important.
That statue of your brother that looks over that park. I worked in that liquor store in the corner of 27th in Brooklyn as a young man coming up. We played a lot of basketball.
27th?
Yep, on 27th in Brooklyn on the corner there.
Right.
I remember that statue looking over us when we would run up and down that basketball court. That statue is still standing there today.
Yeah. As is our childhood home. I tell people when I go back to Kansas City, I sleep in the same bed, not the same bed, the same house that I've been sleeping in for 77 years now. That house is still there. My sister lives there. Hey, we're glad to be there, you know, and we just renamed a street in Al's mother's name, Queen McFarlane, and Queen Mother, So we're family still. Years, we know that means something,
Let me jump in here. Like my mom was one of the ones that led the effort to say that there should be a Bernard Powell Memorial across from the Powell House. And I think before anybody else caught the vision, she had not only the vision, but the fire, an organized neighborhood and community and all of us in the family until we caught it. And then lo and behold, in some time, there's a life-size, larger than life-size statue. Why is it important? Why is it important? I tell people that I have family also in London on my dad's side, and I was visiting, and cousin and I taking a tour bus, open air tour bus around London. Every corner there was a statue of Lord this, Count that, Duke this, Earl that, all these titles, all these names, all these reminders, remembrances, right? And so you sit back and you say, dang, no wonder these people think that they're all of that. They remind themselves of who they are all day and all night.
Yes.
On the other hand, our society seeks to continue to erase our memory of who we are, to marginalize, to devalue our humanity, and to have us buy into this idea that our lives, our thoughts, our feelings, our history doesn't matter, that we have no history, and that our lives are inconsequential. But you as artists, we as communicators are saying, we protest, we object, we know something different, and we are committed to telling our story, not only to ourselves, but to the world. And in doing so, create a history, a narrative in which we win. Well, Kevin West, I wanted you to take a minute, brother, you are a legend in Twin Cities, in the theater community. And I think we've talked about the Kansas City connection before, but I can't remember if we have or not. But it's so glad to hear it right now, because this is exactly the right time for you to connect and to be fresh in my mind for your roots in the same neighborhood I grew up in, and talking with Robert and Brenda. But you've done so much in theater in Twin Cities. Take a minute and walk through the Kevin West portfolio of your activity as an actor and as a television person in this market.
Well, I'm just a hard worker. I'll tell you, I started doing theater in an after-school theater program at the YMCA when I was in junior high school. I kind of got away from it, grew up a little bit, had some growing to do, kind of began to revisit it in college here in Minnesota. I was at Minneapolis Community College doing some plays, and there's this woman by the name of Andrea Kim Walker, who's a dear friend of mine, an actress. She took me to this place. She goes, Kevin, I want to take you to this place called the Penumbra, so you can see. And I was like, well, what's the Penumbra? She's like, it's the only black professional theater in Minnesota. And I went over there and I saw a production of Piano Lesson, directed by the late Mary McClinton, had Lou Bellamy, Rebecca Rice, William Murray Wilkins, Lester Perry, and a few other people, Tanya Jackson. And I had never seen anything like that before. Because what I saw my family, I saw my ancestors, I saw all of me on stage. So that lit a fire in me. And I said, this is the kind of theater I want to do. So I kind of hung around and got to know people and auditioned and got rejected and auditioned and got rejected and auditioned and got rejected. But eventually, I was the right person at the right time for the right play. And here it is. I've been in that company for 29 years now. We have been all over the place. We've done a lot of August Wilson's work, who Penumbra was pretty much the springboard for his career. Worked in all the venues around the Twin Cities, have done some film and some TV, as you said. But what I began to realize, Al and gang, is I came to the realization that I was destined to do this because the young people that I work with, I'm a product of. I tell my students all the time, I used to be you. I'm from urban America. I'm a young black male. I'm looking for a way to express myself. And I found it through art. And that's the beauty of the Capri and PYC. We use art and technology to give these young people an opportunity to express who they are, to be able to find their own voice. And as I said, speak firmly to the world and bring all of who you are wherever you go. And Penumbra Theater has done that for me. The Capri Theater has done that for me. PCYC has done that for me. And all the venues I worked in around the country and around the world. I am where I'm supposed to be. And as my grown children say to me sometimes, because they're in corporate America, they're like, man, you're lucky you get to do what you like. And I say, I worked toward what I wanted to do. But I'm also a product of the Black Arts Movement. I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, when Black people were really having the opportunities and taking their own time to express who we are. So I appreciate you thinking I'm a legend, but I'm just a working stiff over here on Broadway, man. But I'm happy to be doing it.
Well, Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? I was
Please.
just sitting here and saw Kevin. Now, are you any relation to Charzetta West?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Is she an older person? Is she an
Say
older
again?
person? Is she an older person?
Yes, she's my age. Yeah. Yeah,
No,
she's from Kansas City. Kansas City Central High School.
I went to Central High School, but it was in the 80s. And you know what? There are a lot of West.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
my father was Donald West. There's a Juanita West.
West.
Juanita West, Marilyn West. Those are my aunts. They're
Don West, did he go to Lincoln U?
No.
Okay, I went to school with a Don West at Lincoln. Yeah.
No, he was a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to Vietnam.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, he came back, but he's no longer here. But he did come home.
Okay. Yeah, good.
This is such a wonderful conversation. I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane here on KFI and across our social media channels. Let me throw something in too. Insight McFarlane Media, we've got tickets to the upcoming Minnesota State Fair. And let me throw this out. I've talked to my colleagues over at the Capri Theater. And if you want to send an email to me, my email is on the screen, but if you're on radio, I'll say it so you can hear it. It's al@insightnews.com, al@insightnews.com. And I've got about 10 pairs of tickets to the Minnesota State Fair to give away. You send me an email to al@insightnews.com, and tomorrow, till they're out, I'll have tickets available for you to pick up over at the Capri Theater in North Minneapolis on West Broadway. And I'll probably be giving tickets away all week long because it's an opportunity for us to get out and be again with each other in community. So let me go back to the original idea that I said I want to talk to you about, Robert, and ask Signe and James and Kevin all to respond. Brenda, jump in if you would. I treasure my childhood. I treasure thinking about the dreams I had when I was 4 and 5 and 7, 8 years old. I think about, Robert, the Powell house. I was going to write something about the stairs from the main floor to the second floor. And if you recall, there's an oval window on the, it must be the north wall of the building. It is the north wall, I think. And when cars would come down Brooklyn Avenue at night, the headlights would, in a sense, cause the light from the window to move up the stairs. I remember being fascinated by that as a kid, watching hours and hours the movement of light up a stairway by headlights traveling down the street. So I treasure these memories of my childhood, and I treasure the feeling I had then that great things were ahead in our lives. So I want to ask you, Robert, to reflect on being, 4, 5, 10, 12 years old in Kansas City. What kind of world did you see yourself in and creating in your lifetime? What do you think, Robert?
Well, born in 1945 and then growing up in the 50s, Jim Crow, that was just an experience. I don't know whether I felt it or whether because we had a neighborhood, I don't think we grew up all the way down to where Brenda was, from Brenda to wherever she took it further was a neighborhood. We knew each other. The beauty of segregation was all of our heroes were there. our school teachers, you know,
Mr. Perry.
security, everything we wanted. So our parents would always tell us, don't hang with those bad boys. Now, we didn't always know they were bad boys, but we had to rely on the guidance. You know, we were the grandparent that raised us in the Church of God in Christ. You know, it was like, boy, you better not do that. You know, it was terrible, you know, with the pressures.
Yep.
But at the same time, when you get older, you realize how they guided us through some things. I'm sure we made mistakes along the way, some of us, but our hearts were never, you know, ungrateful for what we had and we shared. And so I came into me, well, I think when I was in the Coast Guard and learned and observed military and the good, the bad, the ugly of it. And after I got out, I became an artist. I think that's back to Lonnie, my older brother, who was the known artist in the family. But at the same time, you know, you can't be in a room and look over someone's shoulder. You get some of that just by observation. So I became an artist, developed a philosophy of positive motivation through art, try to give names to art that motivate me and others who might view it, you know. One real quick, roads of life. Why do we meet these people that we meet on Earth? Why? You know, if we could figure that out and utilize and make the connections, you know, we all have bad times, but for the most part, my life has been good. I think about the bad things or death around me, mom and dad, big mama, dad, but that's normal.
Yeah.
But in the big things, you know, I made it through. I'm still going through it. My grandson said, well, grandfather, this is our time. I said, the hell it is, I'm still fighting. You know?
That's right.
What you want me to do? My battle is not through. We still fighting Big Mama and Dad's grandparents' battles, you know? And Sydney, I just think it's so interesting that you are connected to the indigenous people. Over my head is a portrait. I don't think I can identify that it's from a particular tribe, but Komet, a friend of mine, artist, painted it, you know. I give honor, yeah. I'd love to do a show of those. I was in Oklahoma and saw the things that they were making. Oh, it's fantastic, you know. So there are great artists everywhere, you know.
Well, I think, Mr. Powell, you're speaking to it so beautifully. That to be called an art, you know, Lorraine Hansberry said, I'm audacious enough to think of myself as an artist.
Yeah.
And what you're speaking to is the audacity of artists to not only speak truth to power, but to speak our very existence into being, to create characters and images and to be fascinated by light, Al. Those are the artistry, are the ways in which we understand ourselves in the world. And that is profound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kevin, jump in. Kevin James, jump in.
Well, you know, just being from where I'm from and the community that I'm from, you know, my grandparents knew people like Charlie Parker. You know, I met Count Basie when I was 15 years old. My great aunt talked about Benny Moten. I grew up on.
I know Moten. Yeah.
I grew up on 18th and Vine, so I got the last of what Vine offered the Black community at the time. I really experienced the last of it, but that's where I was influenced with art and style and culture and being proud of who I am, because that's what I was told as a child. You know, nobody's better than me, but I'm better than nobody. We can all be in the same room together and we can make progress. So my influences came about, like I said, in that after school theater program. And then when I became a more mature teenager going into adulthood, and I began to really see the world and my place in the world, I had to have a voice. You know, and to echo what Mr. Powell said, I sat down with Buck O'Neill and did an interview with him once before he passed away. And he talked about before the league was integrated, when Negro League Baseball was really thriving and segregation was in place. And as you said, Mr. Powell, you didn't know about those other things outside of your community because you had the doctor, you had the banker, you had the post office, you had the
Satchel Paige right there, you know, Goose Tatum. Yeah.
Let me show you something here. Robert, jump in real quick here. For people that don't know it, people who are listening on the radio, just pull up a picture that has a photograph of Robert, probably at age, what, 9, Robert? How old are you here?
I don't know. That's me on the end, sitting up. Yeah.
Walk us through this photograph. So you have to describe this in a way that people on the radio can see it in their mind's eye. Robert, describe this photograph, if you would.
Oh, that's too hard. Other than to say it shows family. I bet Uncle Big Al was at work. Al's father. Yeah. But that's my dad sitting on the couch with my baby sister. My only sister. Baby sister. And then next to her is my mom, her mom's mom, Al's mom, Aunt Della. I don't know who that is. That must have been Raymond. She's holding, Raymond. Right? Yeah, that's Raymond.
Yeah. Under me, yeah.
Yeah, and then to drop down that front row is me, Burnell, Bernard.
Me. That's me. Me.
Yeah.
That's Bernard. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's you. Yeah. Yeah. Where's Burnell?
Burnell's next to you. So it's you on the
end. Burnell,
Bernard, and me.
Yeah, you. Yeah, next to Kathy and William Charles and Lonnie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got off on there. But
I love sharing this picture, Robert, because in it is a picture of our great grandmother.
Yeah.
Big Mama is our grandmother. Her mother is there.
Right.
And when I had watched, I said this a bunch of times, I came home from watching 12 Years a Slave,
right,
the movie, and I sat, and this picture sits behind me where I'm right now in my on a ledge in my dining room, and all of a sudden the picture started glowing, and I said, "What is this?" Right? And I get up and I take the picture, I look at it, and do the math. The math tells me that our great grandmother, when she was born in about 1862, was born as the property of other human beings.
Yeah.
So people will tell us, get over it. I'm not getting over it, Robert. I can't get over it. I can't get over it. And so I knew someone, we knew someone, we were in the company of someone who touched us, who held us, who instructed us. And that person, when she was born, was the property of another human being.
Right.
So you talked at the beginning about we've come so far, we have. But we have so much more to do. So much more to do. But I believe we're going to do it.
I've equated our struggle in America as going to a doctor and they give you medicine and they say, Brenda, you're going to be better, but you're not well, you know. And I want to be well, you know.
That's right. Listen, we're out of time. This has been a wonderful conversation, Mike. thanks. My gratitude to my co-host Brenda Lyle-Gray, to my cousin Robert Powell from St. Louis, to Kevin West and James Scott here in Twin Cities Capri Theater, and Signe Harriday over at Pillsbury Theater. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation. Join me here again this time next week for the next edition of The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you.
Nice meeting